I had to clean up. I forgot to wipe off that plastic sleeve quickly.
Yes.
And it's a little bit harder to get that paint off.
Yeah, you can usually scratch it off. You use a bread tie or something that'll help to scratch it off too.
I took a little bit of hands, pump soap, that I use on my hands.
Yeah.
And it came up really easy.
Yeah, usually it'll come up. If you leave it there for a week, then maybe it'll be a little harder, but within 24 hours before it cures, usually it's usually pretty good, especially with the multi-surface, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's the page that we're starting with?
Yeah, technically I was already playing around with this kind of look.
Okay.
But definitely I used the Filbert in this design here.
Oh, Filbert, okay.
Yep, and you can kind of see that you can get those fat strokes, and then you can pop up and slide on your side, and then use your chisel to come down again, right? So you can play around with your Filbert, very similar, the same way you can use your round brush, right? Because you have that little bit of a chisel, and there's no points in there for your flat brush, right? So it's very similar to a flat brush, how you're going to load it, but it'll be a little bit more like a round brush when you're using it, okay? But again, depending on the size of your Filbert or the length of it, like we were playing, I was showing you guys that this one has a little bit more length to it, and it's just very slightly bigger. Like this one is a 10 and this one's an 8. But it does have a bit more length to it. Okay. So we'll pull out some magenta or some red if you want to do this design here, so it'll look a little bit like what I was doing. Give it a little bit more of that flower look, right, with the pinks and reds. At the end of my magenta there. And some fresh white. Okay, so the same way we were doing the side loading or the blending on our plate, okay, you can dip two colors together at the same time. Okay, get a good amount on there. And then if this is dry, you can come right into this blending pile, use this again. If it's still lots of wetness, then sometimes it's hard to get a smaller brush stroke inside a wet blending pile. Just find a new one, but mine seems to be dry. Okay, so it's definitely the same way that you're going to multi-load, and then definitely add floating medium or pre-watered down area, okay, so that you get that slip feel. Alright, so if you do have carbon paper, you can use my patterns just with some carbon paper if you don't have something handy to make an oval. Right, and then use a pen, because it gives you a little bit more of a harder ball than a pencil, and just give yourself a little bit of a quick pattern. Okay, this is upside down already. But you can have your little C's opened up at the bottom or over up at the top, or, each side. It depends on what you're doing and how you want it to look. If you're left-handed, then you might be more inclined to have it open on the left-hand side, or, the right-hand side is fine too. And then you'll see that you have a quick little pattern here to follow, and then this will be really easy to erase as well. So again, don't press too hard, guys, just very, very lightly. I pressed really hard here. You can see that it's hard to erase my line here if I wanted it, okay? So make sure that you're pressing just really, really lightly, okay, so that you're just getting that little bit of a shape for your design. Okay. So with these strokes, it's very much similar to what we were doing before. It's all about having that little bit of a punch, right? You're pulling down and then you're curling up really high on your chisel and turning your brush a little bit sideways so that you can get that little bit of a curl going on, okay? And you're going to try and do it in a nice flow. When you're doing it a little bit faster, you're getting a little bit more of a gradient of thickness and then coming in. Okay, so you're practicing some of those real heavy flips around as well. Okay. And then definitely can pop them in. I'm picking up blue again. Why am I picking up the wrong colors tonight? I put out magenta for a reason.
Yeah, it comes across as green, so I thought I had the wrong color.
It comes off like green. A little bit bluey. All right, so if you want to do magenta like I did, there's so many ideas in my brain. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so you're gonna get that similar kind of punch. You're gonna get the highlight on the top like you do with the left, with the flat brush. Okay, so if you go right up on your chisel and do these strokes, then you'll have a little bit more streaky look. Okay, so the same thing goes where if you put the dark on the top, then you're going to have a little bit more darker color show through. So you just flip your brush around like you do the flat brush. You're using it more on a chisel. Okay. And they used to do what they used to call like Renaissance style, very, very simple borders. Like they were just doing like little C's, right? Where you're doing like a little bit of a C and then you're curling that in and doing like a very simple kind of pattern. And then they'll do another one over to this side and then they'll kind of join right into each other. Maybe not so long. Okay, and then they'll put in just these little knobs. A lot of the simple ones were very, very, very simple. And they were just like little borders like that. Tiny little knobs just to play with. Okay, and then they would just use like very, very simple borders. Right. So that's where a lot of the Rococo or Renaissance styles were very, very, very simple, but they were using the flat brush and then just doing some thin chisels with it. And so of course we have our own little one-stroke style. Okay, so again, we like to do our little tails around the outside. Okay. And pretend those are all pink. And then you're going to come all the way where you want the tail to come. Okay, so that you're really focusing on keeping that oval shape. So playing with all these different brushes too, you're going to see that maybe one you like a little bit better than the other. Right, so again, you want to try a little bit more of the punchy style, and then pop up on your chisel, bring that over. Right, so you can definitely come over your smaller strokes. Very easy with those little tiny ones. If you find that you made them all too small, throw in a couple of those little extra, little thin ones that curl all the way around and pop up behind them. And squeeze them right into your little spaces. Put them a little bit darker. You start having that little bit of a dance in them when you pop and then pull up. Okay. I went a little too far on that one. Okay, so they should just all nicely nestle into each other. but you definitely want them to sit on top of each other and then on top of each other. Okay, so if you do have to go over it again to fix something, then definitely you want to keep finishing with your little one. Okay. Put one up over on this side. You definitely want to have all that joined together. Okay, so keep adding to it. Okay, and then the green that I used actually, guys, it was a really soft green that I used, was fresh cut grass and white. But if you don't have this color, then definitely citrus and white will work out really nicely too. Okay, so you can always load a little bit of white and a little bit of green, a little bit of floating medium, and then add some bigger ones. Some green. I've turned my brush around, my plate around, because I always feel like I have more control with the light on the top. Okay. Too much wishy-washy, too much floating medium won't give you color, so you want to make sure that you have that happy balance. Fresh paint and fresh color so that you can get some movement, especially on the cardstock, guys, right? Yes, I'm just playing. Every time you do this, it's going to look a little bit different. Right? Push, pop up a nice thin one in there. It's all about learning how to curl around strokes and just keep adding to them. Yeah, I think we'll pop up a little one. Sometimes they look better upside down. Doesn't look right because I have this blue in there. Change this to blue. Change this blue into green. Now it'll look better. And then you can put your little knots at the bottom. And then again, you're always going to add a few liner strokes. Okay, so depending on what you want more of, like I said, I like the amount of red and pink there is here, so I definitely want to add more green. Okay, so we can get our little curls in there. And this is what helps give it that little extra flair, is those little liner strokes. Always need to use the liner. Always do some little ones in there where we have too big of a spot. This is one of my favorite strokes, is the little curls, just simple ones like that. Too much of a big space, can always pop up one behind it. Add a little bit more water into my green. And it's always nice to have that one at the tail that kind of pops up into a different direction. Curl that right into the bottom of those strokes. Real dramatic one. And it's usually always easier to pull towards you. It's not a wall, we can turn it upside down, right? So do whatever is comfortable for you. Okay, so you have that real strong C in there. And then, like I said, you guys know how to do dots, so it's all up to you if you feel like you want to add, you know, more flair to it, whatever color you want. Either the pink or the green dots, one or the other, not both. Okay. A couple is better than, and here's a big space right here, so that's a good spot to fill it up a little bit with a few dots. Okay, so this time I'm just using 3s. A little bit of an open space here. If I went to go erase, I can see that there's a big space right here that has no attachment. You just got to make sure that you have, you know, something that's following through. Picking up green and pink now at the same time, which might look pretty cool too. Pick up 3 colors, just flip, flop, flip. Where do I want to do this one? I'm pretty happy with how many I've got going on there right now. And we'll put one more here. It's knowing when to stop. That's the hard part. So what do you guys think about using the Filberts? A little bit different?
I find it easy.
Yeah. They're all going to give you slightly different looks. And definitely at the end of the day, you use your favorites, right? I want to introduce you to all the different brushes that are commonly used. And then at the end of the day, like I said, I do like combining things too. I like, you know, using a little bit of the flat brush, a little bit of the round brush, a little bit of the liner brush, and putting them all together too, because sometimes you do get that little bit different look. It has some really, really round, fat ones, and then some little bit chisel ones from your flat brush or your Filbert. And then your really skinny ones with your liner brush. It's great when I can see down at your page while you guys are working. Can see if you guys are doing it. You doing okay? I got any questions? You want me to see anything? Feel free to show me stuff. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, Charisse, you got a big filbert there? Is that the filbert? Yeah, it's a big one, eh? Yeah. So you can definitely get bigger strokes with the bigger ones. So play around with your different sizes that you have and see how you can get those different looks. Because the more different variations that you have makes it look a little bit more interesting. Right? Put maybe just 3 main areas where there's really big strokes. And then you're going to come in with your medium strokes And then you're going to come in with your liner strokes and just keep filling and filling and filling. Changing colors if you want, like this one. There's Norwegians did a lot of scroll work as well, and they actually call it rose mailing. So if you guys want to Google, and look up some different styles, definitely your Renaissance scrolls and your rose mailing is definitely your traditional style, and you'll see that they're very, very, very simple styles. But a lot of them are very free form. But sometimes it is nice to have that symmetrical look too. So if you're doing something that's straight on, or like a leaf or something like that, then definitely you want to try and get that symmetrical look. You're going to be playing around and doing the exact same thing on both sides. But personally, like I said, I like the free form. I just feel it and do it and play with it. And then if I have too many that are too small, then definitely I'll try and pop in something that's going to help break it up a little bit. So then, they're not all the same. Try and make them all a little bit different. Have your little sets of 2 and 3s, and then have your pops. Okay, so when you're doing things in a circle, it does make things a little bit tighter too, and you just tend to be repetitive in that same pattern, going towards. And then, of course, you have to change direction somewhere in your C. So, usually it's just a small little tail that you change direction, but the rest of it all just comes from the top of the C and then just keeps trailing all the way around in that oval or circle. Okay, so it just depends on what you like, because it's circles or ovals. Ovals are actually my favorite. It's like the way they curl into each other with the C's, right? And you can play around and do letters like this too if you really wanted to. Do the alphabets or do a nice design for somebody and try to do like a scroll style lettering. Maybe we'll have to come up with another class just to do letters or something. I just like, yeah, this really looks like a nice C. I'm sure some letters might be a little easier to do than others, especially with the round ones. Yeah. But yeah, you can make them a little bit more script-like, but with scroll little additives to it. Definitely the C is a good one. So if you know anybody with the name C, like Cecilia or Cindy, I'm trying to remind myself who's all here with C's. There you go, Cindy and Cecilia. You both can play with your first name. But maybe Charisse and Sally would like to do an S.